me and Joe go bad, we go bad on each other. And like when I hear why he's upset with me, I'm like, oh, I can understand why he felt that way. His last situation with Spotify, and I was on the radio, and I said, I think Joe Budden understands. Joe Budden knows his worth. He just doesn't know how to negotiate it or something like that. I think I said, and I was just like, if every time you're at a corporation and things don't go the way you want them to, kind of got to blame you and your team. You can't compare yourself to the Joe Rogans and the Bill Simmons and all of those guys, because Joe Rogan is an anomaly, number one. Like, don't nobody do numbers like Rogan, period. Black, white, it don't matter. And, the guys like Bill Simmons, they have networks. So they get compensated a little bit different.
They receive somewhat different compensation since they have networks. What makes a lift good? We talk about Joe Budden's podcast and all of his co-hosts, both on and off the pod, in this episode of JBP Elevated, which features your buddy Elevation. I'm happy that Charlamagne and Angie Martinez discussed this because I wanted to know if Charlamagne had heard Joe's recent pod speech about Charlamagne. Thus, the adages hindsight 2020 and mature minds always prevail are both true. It took place in this brief section. He started talking about how there isn't genuine hostility between him and Joe, which is why they treat each other so badly whenever they disagree. They are regarded as competitors. They have a competitive spirit, and this quote-unquote conflict would be more interesting if they truly understood that, but it currently sounds like they're taking personal jabs. It's too late. They didn't go too far. Every time Joe brought up the accusations against Charlamagne, they embraced that narrative, and you know what I mean, grape. But now that it's over and Charlamagne has the bag, he can talk more honestly and freely about how he was behaving and treating Joe at the time. When he brought up Joe's statement that he was supporting Charlamagne in signing this 5-year, 20-year, or $200 million contract, Charlamagne questioned Joe's bargaining strategies when he signed with Spotify rather than speaking with Joe. He attempted to mention that they didn't call each other, but he didn't call Joe. Why should I give you a call? In order to prevent these from taking away all of my rights, I'm bargaining, and since this is my battle, I will stand up for independent people like myself. Additionally, we will view each other entirely differently than is necessary because your conflict is between being a Stephen A. Smith and being the top employee of a massive conglomerate. At the end of the day, you are still engaged in the same battle because if Charlamagne succeeds with iHeartRadio, Netflix, and all the other partnerships that iHeart is able to establish instead of sourcing, if he cultivates the connections and keeps networking, he might create opportunities for independent creators like you. Conversely, Joe could have arranged for Charlamagne to sign his contract with iHeartRadio, Patreon, or any other company if he keeps gaining the networks and relationships he's developing and if he and Charlamagne get along well. Because Joe ultimately owns shares in Patreon. In order to recruit, you must keep an eye on how Charlamagne moves with these individuals in the higher spaces. Not so much how he's communicating with iHeart and Netflix, but how he's working with the Black Effect Network, because he has a few well-known people under him. Additionally, because you're unable to attract these well-known figures to your network, the least you could do is invite them to Patreon, where your ownership stake increases with the number of well-known celebrities you have. However, Shauna freely acknowledges that he handled it improperly, but rather than accepting complete responsibility, he just keeps saying that this is how we treat one another. If only these two could agree on something. If only these two could acknowledge that they are two of the largest names, faces, and voices in broadcast media and urban podcasts. If Charlamagne and Joe were still connected, and Charlamagne was able to acquire $200 million over the course of 5 years on his own, and Joe was able to amass more than $20 million annually on his own, then we could take this much further than we are now. What type of agreement might they negotiate with Netflix, Paramount, Peacock, or anybody else if they banded together? Because those are the two major venues on which we can create and distribute our content, we are now concentrating on Netflix and YouTube. However, it's crucial that you all move past this, and eventually they will as well. They intend to put things right. They will once more be pals. They will have the ability to conduct business. It's crucial that you all take this action because it's absurd for us, our community, and the urbans. We will discuss how all of these contracts have failed. For example, when Joe Rogan visited Spotify and no one followed suit, the next deal after renegotiating with him, Spotify still granted him $245 million, but said he could use YouTube. If something were to happen to any of us, Charlamagne or Joe, for example, we would consider it a failure and discuss the negative aspects of it. In the meantime, Joe and Charlamagne are receiving the information they want, and after that, they just move to another business, earning more money and capital, expanding their own operation, and never really granting these individuals the rights. And they're never actually locking down to anyone. They're just acquiring more money and more information and moving on to the next platform. And none of these have proven to be a failure. We didn't view the ringer as a failure or as giving up his rights, his life, or anything of the sort when he went to Spotify and no one showed up. We promoted the agreement. No queries were posed by us. We awaited the conclusion of the 3-year period. Then we saw them signing a new contract. These two are experiencing the same issue. It is the same. They said Joe signed the Spotify deal, went independent, and was still able to rise instead of joining with another platform company. The previous day, I mentioned that Charlamagne won't be getting another contract. His 5-year contract is about to expire. Nothing about it has reached us. It's almost the end of the year, and he did so effortlessly. However, because of their separation, they will set them against one another. In contrast, I can assure you that Joe Rogan, Colin Cowherd, and Bill Simmons have all had at least one conversation. How much are you all willing to wager? I see that you managed to accomplish this. I was considering offering something that is essentially identical to what you have set up. How did you contact these individuals? I can assure you that they collaborated to create these kinds of agreements, even if it was something as simple as that. At some point, all 3 of them most likely spoke with Howard Stern and exchanged information. They are never put up against one another. We are constantly pitted against one another in the meantime, and a misunderstanding was the cause of all this. None of the offensive things Joe mentioned about Charlamagne would have come from him if Charlamagne hadn't claimed that Joe Budden had no idea what he was doing on his massive syndicated platform. In the end, your voice is powerful to more than simply black people. Though there are white individuals in positions of power who are also listening to you, we will be the primary ones to show up and rah-rah and support you. Well, perhaps he doesn't. He might be a hothead. Perhaps every circumstance he has encountered has ended badly. I don't want to speak with Joe right now. That is a big problem. Conversely, Joe mentioning your rape accusations was of no use to you, not at all. Thankfully, that didn't affect you because you were already in relationships and had a network and contacts with iHeart. However, they walked your ass straight out of those doors, as he stated in the lengthy tirade that I can't stop thinking about. Saying he doesn't know how to bargain will imply the same thing as those accusations did to you, if your voice is as strong as we all know it to be. We are also abusing one another. Who am I to argue that $200 million isn't a significant contract? However, that $200 could have been $4 or $5 million, and this renewal could have been the third. Because you've already been in charge of The Voice for more than 10 years. More than 10 years. By now, it's over 20 years. But I'm getting off topic. I was happy to learn about Charlamagne. In the majority of his recent interviews, he has focused more on mature mental health issues. He is thus elucidating his ideas. Making mistakes is acceptable. These kinds of rivalries are okay, but I sincerely hope you two will reconcile. Together, you are more effective than separately. Additionally, you were well known for your year-end wrap-ups. What are you aware of? The 23rd is today. If you all got together and accomplished something along those lines, it would be fantastic. Let's make the entire goddamn community better. Here, everyone is getting bread. I see all of you. I could never express how much you all inspire me. However, let me know what you think in the comments, dude. Is there a true rivalry here? Will they be able to move past this, or will we just have to watch them argue and clash for the rest of their lives? If you enjoy the video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe to the page. You already know how awesome we are if you have. Of course, if you haven't noticed, go check out the Patreon. On the first day, all videos are available for free. After that, they are hidden behind whatever paywall they are hosted on. I haven't